Greetings and salutations everybody, welcome back for another little 80s entry here. Not one that's been forgotten, but one that I was just kind of curious to see if it actually is held up after all these years when I picked it up on Blu-ray. And that would be for Pretty in Pink from 1986. Now, this one is directed by Howard Deutsch, who later on followed this up with Some Kind of Wonderful, which I have a video for and I will link to at the end of the video, as well as The Great Outdoors. And it's written by John Hughes, who had written a lot of these kinds of films throughout the 80s. And so, of course, it's starring the likes of Molly Ringwald, John Cryer, Andrew McCarthy, James Spader, Harry Dean Stanton, and Annie Potts. We even get some quick moments here from Andrew Dice Clay and a very early role of Gina Gershon. Very small role, though. But as a reminder for those of another generation, or for those who never really got around to seeing this one, the synopsis is as follows. A poor girl must choose between the affections of dating her childhood sweetheart or a rich but sensitive playboy. Well, that's a bit strange. It's from IMDb, and yeah, the childhood sweetheart thing, I don't really get, much less the playboy description. But as far as like the childhood sweetheart, they're referring to her friend Ducky, who's played by John Cryer, who obviously is infatuated with her, but she doesn't really have the same feelings for her. More on that later. And of course, the playboy, they're referring to Blaine, played by Andrew McCarthy. Anyways, she's indeed poor, literally living on the other side of the tracks. She has this attraction for Blaine, who also has an interest in her, and he's kind of one of the rich kids, and one of his friends, Steph, who's played by Spader, also has interest in Molly Ringwald's character, but he's more of like this slimy guy who's interested more along the lines of like conquest, rather than a real interest in who she is. So a bit more about that character, about Andy, Ringwald's character, is that, she's definitely poor. Her dad, who's played by Harry Dean Stanton, only has part-time work, so she's been kind of helping out to support the household due to her mother having walked out years earlier. So she works part-time at a record store run by Iona, played by Annie Potts of Ghostbusters fame, and more recently in Young Sheldon. Ducky, her best friend of years, has, like I said, developed these really deep feelings for her, but she really sees him as just a friend. So she starts to get to know Blaine because of their mutual interest, but it's always in the back of her head that they come from very different worlds. With her being poor and him being rich, they live very different lives. And Blaine definitely is dealing with some issues because of this, because his friends, particularly Steph, are not looking kindly on her interest at this girl, as they see her as kind of like this poor outsider of their group. So we follow this, lovers from different worlds kind of story throughout, and of course we get a nice happy ending, as expected. But how does the overall story hold up? Well, very well, actually. We have a lot of comedy in the story, which is carried heavily and perfectly by John Cryer as Ducky, as he laments his painful crush on Andy. We have a lot of family drama that comes up with, Andy and her father trying to, deal with what their lives are now that, the maternal, family member has left so many years ago. We also have the stuff about this duality of the poor kids versus rich kids and how that plays out in ways which are still very relevant today via characters played by Spader and McCarthy. Now, paying closer attention to this as an adult, and particularly to see what is held up, there were some things that I didn't really understand as well when I was much younger and I saw this, which is like why Blaine kind of pulls away from Andy at one point, because he really kind of chickens out because of his friends and family and the pressures he might feel being judged trying to date this person from kind of outside their world in a way, because even Steph, his friend Steph, played by Spader, kind of implies that there's going to be a lot of negative after effects here if he actually tries to pursue her. But of course, eventually Blaine comes around, and we get not just a nice ending for Blaine and Andy, but we even get a nice one for Ducky, and even there's a quick scene with Iona that she's finally kind of met a nice guy. Even Andy's father has kind of finally come to terms with, about his wife leaving, and we even get some nice stuff with Steph being told off as well. All these themes definitely hold up, which is why I think films like this, seem to always have a special place in the hearts of different generations. I really feel like this one you could show it to a 15-year-old and they would take to it just as much as a 25, 40, or 60-year-old. A lot of these themes are kind of repeated through a lot of different stories, and still, after more than 35 years, it's more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest little 80s entry here, this little throwback, and for sticking around to the end, as that, along with liking, subscribing, commenting, and so forth, and sharing, really do help out quite a bit. I have a few links coming up at the end screen here. Now this one I checked out on Blu-ray. It also is available on paid rental. But let me also suggest a book called Brat, an 80s Story. This is by Andrew McCarthy, where he goes into some detail about this film, including reshooting the ending, which originally had Andy ending up with Ducky, which might explain that synopsis that IMDb had for it. Anyways, I will link to the Some Kind of Wonderful review and the a book review that I did, which includes Brat, an 80s Story, in just a few moments here. So thanks for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.